viewers have been asking that, they've enjoyed this long format of chatting, so we should give it
Oh,
to
good,
them.
good, good. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear that people have been enjoying that type of content. So, and this is a good opportunity for you and I to catch up. I know
yeah,
we've had a number of things going on both of our ends. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, where would you like to get started?
I guess we can start off with some interesting stuff, like what uh is like the most interesting question you got um since we last chatted.
Yeah, I would say, well, one that just came up recently was somebody commented about having some frustration about how finasteride and minoxidil,
Hmm.
in terms of helping to regrow or keep hair, seems to be more effective for some people than for others. I know you had some success
Yeah.
using those treatments for better part of 10 years.
Hmm.
This person seemed to be frustrated that even staying consistent with those types of treatments didn't seem to be working for him.
Hmm.
And I think it kind of speaks to just the genetics of all of this, right?
Yeah.
Some of us are just genetically inclined to lose our hair because of whether it's our mother's, father, as a lot of people,
Yeah.
use that tie. But I think genetics are a lot more complicated than that. Um, and sometimes that comes down to will a treatment like minoxidil or finasteride be effective for you? And in
Yeah.
some cases, I know for you, it worked for a while.
Hmm.
You had some side effects as well, but in terms of keeping your hair, it was
Yeah.
effective. But
Yeah.
for others, that type of treatment still doesn't show them the results they want, which I know can be frustrating.
Did this user indicate how long they were using finasteride for, or?
I didn't get all of those details, but it did sound like he'd been trying for quite a while.
Yeah.
Just hadn't been was still seeing significant hair loss and
Hmm.
was getting frustrated by it.
Yeah. Like I'm no doctor, but like what I've read, the finasteride stops like 70% of the DHT that
Mm.
you're producing. So the last 30% can essentially become more aggressive or take up more, I guess, energy, and that'll start to progress your male pattern baldness, which is kind of probably what happened to me.
Hmm.
Um, that it just got to be a certain threshold that 30% of 50 is different from 30% of 100, right?
Right.
So yeah.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize is you don't even notice. A lot of people will not notice their hair loss until they've lost 50% or
Yeah.
more of their hair. It's
Hmm.
not noticeable until then, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just how much hair most people, start with. And
Hmm.
when you lose that 50%, that's when you start to notice the thinning. And so
Hmm.
it could be at that point, like you said, where maybe you're already a little bit too far gone, and
Yeah.
even getting on the treatments, they're only going to be so effective. You're still going to see some hair loss.
Yeah. And I'd say for like the first maybe 8 years, my hair actually got denser.
Mhm.
And then it was like kind of the last 2-ish years where I started to notice that, I mean, it was very minuscule. I was nitpicking the entire time.
As
But
we all do
yeah, I
when we're
know.
losing our
Yeah,
hair.
maybe it's a universal trait, but um, yeah. Then I started noticing that it started kind of receding, just slowly, but it was. And then when I rolled off of finasteride, um, I actually kind of kept retained my hair, and I'm not sure because I started using minoxidil to grow the beard. So I don't
Mhm.
know if that systematically, maybe delayed it, but as I started ramping down from using minoxidil, um, then like my hairline started to recede like a little more rapidly.
Mhm.
It's still slow, but it's
Yeah.
yeah,
And speaking of beards, I was going to say I do feel like your beard is quite a bit thicker
yeah.
than
Thank
the
you.
last time I saw you. So
Yeah, I
whatever you've been doing there has been working well. So
thank you. I finally rolled off of minoxidil, so I'm like my end goal was after finasteride, I would do minoxidil for 2-3 years, get the beard for the cope, I guess, to balance out the look, and then
yep.
roll off of it, so then I can be completely free of using any kind of medication for a
Hmm.
while, hopefully.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I shaved it in like the 1st of August, and now this is just I haven't trimmed it or done anything. So The
Mhm.
hope is to go the full year. I don't know. Have you done that yet?
A full year without trimming or shaving the beard.
There's different rules. There's the year that you can't trim for length is kind of the more standard one, and then the more extreme one, which is what I'm going to try to do, is
Yeah.
like no maintenance and see what happens.
So I've this is about as long as I let it go. There was a point where I had it probably a bit longer than this,
Yeah.
and my wife was like, I think it's probably time to
It's
uh,
always that talk.
yeah, she loves the beard, but there was a point where she's like, I think it's getting to be a bit much. And to be honest, I do work in kind of a corporate
Yeah.
environment, so a little bit of a conservative corporate environment. So the
Sure.
fact that I've gotten away with this, I'm happy with. So
Yeah.
and we were at a friend's wedding not too long ago, and I actually went in for like a professional, uh, barber shop, for the beard trim and get
Yeah.
the whole treatment, and it looked quite good at that point. So that was a few weeks
Nice.
ago. But that was kind of nice. I very rarely go into a barber shop to trim the beard. I do it myself usually, just
Yeah.
with clippers. But that was kind of a nice treatment for, a once in a, year type of thing.
Yeah.
Fun.
I once maybe when I hit the year mark, I'll go to a barber and have it done up like professionally. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And do the full head shave and the hot
yeah.
towel and all
Oh
that.
yeah, I gotta try that.
Yeah. Yeah, but have you gotten? I know you've been on a little bit of a hiatus with some personal things,
Yeah.
but have you gotten any other interesting questions that have kind of rolled in the
I
last
think
couple
the big
months?
one that I've been getting a lot of, just kind of recurring, like, is dating. I think a lot of people are afraid
Mm,
of, when you shave your head, like that you're just not going to be attractive anymore.
yeah,
And I think, sadly, I think a lot of that is just projection, right? You have this image of yourself, and the expectation is not what the reality of it is.
right,
And I think
right.
that
Yeah,
disparity is the suffering.
yeah.
And I
That's a
think,
big one. Mhm.
yeah, and I think, it's the whole idea that I think you can only receive as much love as you give yourself or you allow for yourself. And if
Mhm.
you like feel like this losing your hair is like that detrimental that you feel that you are unworthy of love even,
Mhm.
then I think you can reject any vies for connection with people. And that includes dating, that
Yeah,
includes, friendships as well. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's I think, a really important topic for a lot of guys who are losing their hair and maybe still single. And there's really an unfortunate, spiraling that I think happens for a lot of guys. This was definitely the case for me,
mhm.
where you start to kind of give yourself some negative self-talk. And for men, I think we tend to bottle a lot of that emotion up. We don't share a lot. Maybe we're embarrassed about it. Maybe we're self-conscious about it, and we don't want to talk about it with friends or family.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, what that means is that you're keeping all of that inside, and you tend to uh, spiral a little bit and kind of go down these negative self-talk rabbit holes, um, that, to your point, minimizes your confidence and minimizes your ability to excuse me, love yourself,
yeah,
and therefore you may not see that reciprocated. This is one I've been trying to hit on my on my channel a little bit,
hmm
is pointing out that there is tons of evidence to the contrary. That just because you are telling yourself that you're unattractive, you're not lovable anymore, just because your hair is thinning or you don't
hmm
have hair. Um, I have been finding, just dozens and dozens of comments on uh, different accounts and different videos where there's a guy who's making a video about himself saying he's worried about going bald,
hmm
or asking his followers, "Hey, I'm going bald. How do women feel about this? How do people
yeah,
feel about this?" And all of the comments from women are like, "Love it. Bald is hot. I love the bald look. It's
hmm
so good." 90+% of the comments from women are all positive.
Yeah.
Uh, and then maybe the rest, that other 10% is not for me, but if, it looks fine.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like, yeah, of course, you're not going to be everybody's preference.
Yeah.
You're not going to be everybody's type,
Yeah.
but there's so much evidence that uh, that there are people out there who really do like the look, and if you
Hmm.
wear it confidently, that's really what it's all about. It's the confidence
Yeah.
to just own it.
Hmm.
I think I think to a point you made earlier, it can be challenging initially because you do have a vision of yourself, an image of yourself.
Hmm.
And when you're losing your hair, it kind of feels out of your control, like your image is changing and you have no control of it.
Yeah.
And that can feel, when things are outside of your control, it can feel, like you're spiraling a little bit. So,
Hmm.
um, and one final comment I'll make here real quick. I know I've been rambling for a while. Is that on those same videos where the women are commenting like "love it, looks great,"
Yeah.
all that. When I do see negative comments, they're usually coming from other men,
Yeah. Hmm.
and it's really interesting because it'd be like guys saying like, "Oh, you need to go to Turkey, get a hair transplant."
Yeah.
Um, it's really interesting that the men are the ones making the disparaging comments, and I
Hmm.
think it's complete projection
Hmm.
and fear from them that like, oh, I hope this doesn't happen to me. Like
Yeah.
these
You
are the
put it
thoughts
down to
that,
try to separate yourself from it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other one that I get is like these concerns that, bald is not the look for everyone, right? That not everyone can pull it off. Like, do you have
Hmm.
any thoughts on that one?
Oh, meaning that for
Like,
some
so,
people it works, but for others,
yeah, some people
somebody
say
might be
that.
saying, "Well, bald looks good on you," but if for me,
Mhm.
it's not going to work well.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
I think most guys underestimate how good they will look if they decide to just shave it off.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised when I did it.
Hmm.
After that initial shock, right? It is a shock when you have some hair and then you shave it off, and it's a big change.
Hmm.
Um, but after that shock wears off and you kind of settle into it, uh, again, I mean, I spend some time on like the bald subreddit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been on there. That's a great resource for anyone listening,
Hmm.
uh, for just support from other guys who are going through this.
Yeah.
But you see these before and after pictures, and I am just constantly amazed at like wow, this guy looks like a
Yeah.
brand new person, just
Yeah.
looks so much better. Like it really
Yeah.
is amazing. So I think a lot of guys underestimate how good they will look.
Hmm.
Look, I get it. Maybe there's some cases out there where you feel like, oh, I definitely would have looked better with hair, but again, it comes down to confidence. It comes down to um, once you adjust to that new look,
Hmm.
uh, it's really really amazing how much better I think most people look.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I just resonate with that too. It's like I think maybe, at a point I was maybe at a point where it's like, oh, look at that balding guy, right? And I remember doing that when I was younger when I had hair.
Hmm.
And look, karma got me. I'm just kidding. uh, no, I was already predisposed to that too. So, and I think that was probably where the insecurity came in for me. It's like, I tried
Yeah.
to distance myself from it, but that's the reality of it, and that was kind of where my trajectory was going to head. And I think because I tried to push it away so far, I think I didn't normalize it within myself. And going
Yeah.
into that bald subreddit, you get to you're no normalizing it for yourself. And
Mhm.
there's I don't I it's been said, I don't know any statistics or anything, but um that the more you see something, the more it becomes okay. It's not
Right.
like and if you are it's the very first time you're seeing it, well, you're going to have at least curiosity, but maybe you have fear as well because you don't know what it is.
Right.
Um, and I think ripping the band-aid off was probably the best thing for me to just like, just get it done and over with, see what you look like, and
Yep.
then just you're kind of forced with it after that. You can't run away from you can't put
Yep.
the hair back on, you know.
Exactly.
So you kind of have to get used to it.
Yeah.
And then the very first time I did it in college, I didn't like it.
Mhm.
And I let it grow back out. And I think that was the mistake because I didn't go all full Bic, and I think that there's a different look when you fully go down to the,
Yeah.
down to the scalp. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is. It's definitely a big adjustment at first, but I mean, if you think about anything in your life where you've had to make a big change, maybe
Yeah,
you had to maybe you're a kid and you had to move states, you had to change schools. It's
sure.
yeah, it's scary at first. It feels like a big change. You can't envision it yet, or your mind goes to places that are negative.
Hmm.
But then you get there, you adjust very quickly. Human beings are very adaptable.
Hmm.
We're very good at adapting to our new circumstances. The problem is when it feels like it's in your future, and so you haven't actually experienced it yet. You haven't had the chance to adapt to it. You're
Yeah.
just the anxiety is just building up before that
Hmm.
moment,
Yeah.
and the anxiety is what really eats away at the confidence and eats away at the ability to talk about it with other people because you're in your own head a
Yeah.
lot. um, and actually kind of on that topic, I guess switching gears a little bit, but
Hmm.
is that an experience, do you find that to be kind of a not a universal experience but a common experience for men, maybe for yourself or for people that that it is harder to talk about these types of things for men, whether it's hair loss or just anything else that they're struggling with?
I I think it is, and I think maybe it's because men are taught like from an early age that not many people care about your problems, that it's
Mhm.
usually a man's job to fix the problem.
Right.
Um, and I know we're making strides away from that, but I still think that that is a very deep reality for a lot of men.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and even opening up to, people that are close to you can also be a vulnerable state, you
Mhm.
know. And I think as a man, you're taught that you need to be a strong pillar.
Yeah.
Um, how can you have cracks in the foundation, you know? And I think
Yeah. Right.
and I think losing your hair is kind of, there's a reason there's that story in the Bible of Samson, how he had his strength in his hair. And then when
Mhm.
he got it shaved off, right, he felt that he didn't have the strength anymore.
Hmm.
But then, in the story, God, the universe, imbues him with the power and realizes that it's not in the hair, it's within him, it's the heart,
Hmm. That's yeah.
and the soul, the spirit, and that's what he's able to then tear down the temple that,
Hmm. That's
wronged
a good
him.
one.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. It's really a lot of us tie that confidence or whatever it is to something like our hair or some
Hmm.
other physical part of ourselves.
Sure.
And But if you can find that confidence without that crutch, so to speak,
Mhm.
uh, you're uh, really in a good spot, because that means you have internal confidence. You have confidence from within. It's not
Mhm.
something external that's giving you that sense of confidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I agree. I think some of that stigma is breaking, just in terms of men being able to emotionally connect and
Yeah.
emotionally, uh, kind of dump and get things off your chest. But it's still very, very much a reality for a lot of guys that they feel like they have to keep that stuff inside. They feel like if they open up to anybody,
Mhm.
they're going to be seen as weak. And you hear stories. In some cases, that might be true. They open up and um, people lose respect for them or things like that. But I think in many
Mhm.
cases we imagine that worst case scenario, like, oh, if
Yeah.
I open up, if I get vulnerable about a certain topic, then my friend or my girlfriend or whoever is going to think less of me.
Yeah.
um, but in many cases I don't think that's true. And the flip side of that is, if if you can't open up to somebody and if they're going to lose respect for you or
Hmm.
anything like that, that's
Yeah.
probably not a friend you want anyway.
Agreed. Yeah.
You know, that they're showing you who their true colors are
Hmm.
if they're not going to allow you to give you that space.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a really good point, and I think it's a really good litmus test. It's painful, to realize that the people that you think are close to you are not, but
Hmm.
it's also a good pruning technique to make
Yes.
sure that you are growing to your full potential,
Mhm.
because people like that will hold you back. You know, um, whether it's envy or they don't like you, they're going to try to get in your way, because they don't like whatever you are to them.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
Kind of on a lighter note,
Yeah.
I got a couple of questions. Do you think that beard is cope for balding?
That is a funny question. I personally don't think so, but of course, people probably say I'm biased because I have a beard. Um, I think it's just another way, since you don't have any hair on the top of your head, it's just
Yeah.
another way to bring some, style, some, some different, I guess way to stand out a little bit to your face overall. That's kind of how I look at it.
Mhm.
But I think I guess I could understand the argument. Actually, a coworker of mine just yesterday was like, I don't know, he came across an old picture of mine when I had hair and no beard, and he was like, your hair just, I guess, migrated down to.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, well, I'm glad you're comfortable joking with me about that, I guess. um, which I've heard that comment before. It's pretty funny, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's cope necessarily. I think the bald head beard look does look good
Yeah.
in general. But I have a couple other coworkers who just they rock the fully shaved look
Yeah.
and they look badass. Like it
Sure.
looks good. They rock it confidently. So in some cases, you may just want to have a beard because it just feels like, hey, it's something that I can like style. I can do a little bit different. Um, but that's my thoughts on it. So
Yeah. For
yeah,
me,
how about you?
it was cope. It was like, you know what? If
Yeah.
I was like in my searching for trying to figure out a way to manage the, balding. I was like, well, if I take these medications, they're not permanent. It's not a cure. None of the medications they're like a lifetime subscription to have it hair, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so in my search, I was like, minoxidil can make you have a beard permanently. It's like, well, that's the solution. I can have the bald
Mhm.
beard look, which I think looks good.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to, that's the permanent solution. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I can get on board with that.
That's
Um,
fair. That's fair.
but
Yeah.
in the process, it's almost funny. It's like now that I can grow a beard, it's like, oh, maybe I don't need the beard after all.
I don't think I think you can rock it either way. I've
Yeah,
seen
thank you.
you
Yeah.
with very, shaved down pretty much down to the stubble of the beard. It looks good still.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
yeah. Uh, I know there's a beard filter on TikTok, I think that shows you what you'll look like without a beard. I guess I am a little afraid to try it, but maybe I'll have to do that at some point.
Have you ever done like full monk style or
I have not done that before. So, but maybe
yeah.
maybe at some point in the future I'll have to try it just to
Yeah.
say I tried
So
it.
you were already growing your beard before you shaved your head then.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, I kind of work for a little bit of a conservative corporate environment, and they're pretty. At one point, they were kind of strict about like minimal facial hair. I mean, this was a suit and tie type of company for
Mm,
a long time, and during the pandemic, things obviously became a lot more lax. Everyone's working from home, so of course
mm,
it's more lax. And at that point, um, that's when I really started to grow the beard. Um, Still, had my hair at the beginning of the lockdowns and things like that, but started growing the beard in, and then I was like, okay, I think it's time to just go ahead and try shaving my head. And so at that point, I did already have a beard.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. So haven't tried that yet, doing the full shave, but maybe I'll
Yeah.
give it a try sometime.
For me, it was like, at the time, growing a beard was the copium, but I couldn't really grow one when I shaved my head. But to me, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna face my fear of like what I currently think is the worst look for me, which is to be completely bald all over. And then, I was kind of forced to be in that position until the beard grew in. But then, yeah, as I said, it's like as I was able to start to grow a beard, I was like, actually, me having the clean shaven face isn't so bad,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice that you can pull off either option. So,
Yeah, thank you.
um, I think did you say you had another interesting question that came in, or?
Um, can't think of one off the top of my head, but
Well, I am curious. I think probably another good topic,
yeah.
is I guess on that topic of copium, so to speak. I know that's sometimes a comment that I will get on some videos of where I'll talk about like, oh, here are like the positive reasons for being bald,
Yeah.
and like here are the benefits.
Hmm.
And somebody in the comments would be like, oh, dude, you're coping. This is total copium.
Yeah, I get that.
Um, what are your thoughts on that in terms of focusing on the positive sides of being bald? I mean, is that really coping, or is that just focusing on the good, or are they the same thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that that kind of reminds me of the disparaging comments of pretty much anyone regarding balding. It's
Hmm.
so if you kind of understand that, you can let those type of comments slip off of you, um,
Hmm.
and then be more aware to the things that are more positive or serving, your message. And I think with that same idea, it's like, if you only focus on that you're losing something when you're balding, well, then that's what your reality will be. You're going to feel like you're losing something all the time. And
Right.
I think before I shaved my head, that's kind of where my mindset was that I was feeling like, my health bar was just diminishing
Hmm.
constantly.
Hmm.
Um, but then after I shaved my head, after, the initial shock, uh, I think that I stopped focusing on that and started focusing on other areas of my life, or even focusing on the positives
Yeah.
that I didn't even fathom because I was so fixated on the negatives for so
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Like the maintenance is like awesome, and I save like $25 every 3 weeks. That's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
that I could just take the soap bar and just go all the way over, and that's cool.
And you're done.
Yeah, and you're done. Um,
You touched on something I think is really interesting, is um, that balding versus bald, right?
mhm,
And I think in the process of balding, where you're losing your hair and you're
mhm,
aware of the fact that you're losing your hair, that's kind of that's the hardest stage, right?
mhm,
Um, because at that point it feels like a continuous sort of loss,
yeah,
right? You're losing something during
mhm,
this whole process.
yeah,
And then you get to that point where we're at, where it's all gone. There's no
yeah,
more of that feeling anymore. It's
yeah,
like this is it, and that does allow you to then open up your mind, all that mind space that you had dedicated to this, like, I'm losing my hair and I'm
mhm,
stressing about it, I have anxiety about it. That goes away because you've hit this point where it's like that's all done now,
yeah,
and now I can clear up that mind space to focus on
yeah.
positive things, focus on my health, my career, my relationships, other things like that.
No, agreed. I think
Yeah.
a great analogy is like if let's imagine that you're losing your arm, and it's slowly d falling off, right? Or like just
Mhm.
slowly diminishing all the way up. I think that process would be really stressful because you are just essentially having to constantly adjust your
Mhm.
expectations all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
One day you have fingers, next day you have nubs, the next day you have a wrist, right? And that's always a constant adjustment versus if you just chop the arm off, right? That's the end, that's the terminus.
Yeah.
then you can actually fully adjust and then move
Yeah.
forward, right? Because you're no longer having to constantly realign. It's,
Hmm.
you know, the end. You can then figure out how you want to live your life, you know, at this new
Yeah.
end state, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. It's that constant adjustment that feels like you're stuck in when
Hmm.
you're losing your hair because you're not sure, what's going to happen down the road. And then, yeah, to your point, when you hit that terminus, then you can move on and
Hmm.
just be done with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, there's that argument of like, well, when do I shave my head? I'm balding, I'm
Hmm.
losing my hair. At what point do I do that?
Yeah.
Do I do it when, do I cut it off when I'm at the wrist, or do I wait a little bit longer?
At the shoulder.
Yeah. And I think that obviously that's a personal choice for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, but I think if it's really, my take on that has always been that if it's really stressing you, if you're finding yourself thinking about your hair constantly throughout the day,
Mhm.
it's probably time to take some action on it,
Yeah.
because at that point it is having a negative overall net negative impact on your life.
No, that's a great, yeah, that's a good test because, yeah, for me, I was like, and then I think the problem with taking medication was that it kept me in that state for so much longer, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
rather than just biting the bullet and accepting that this could be how I can live my life and that it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I know we're just about at time, so it was
Yeah.
great chatting with you, and
Yeah. This is awesome.
thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, catch you later.